Good evening, YouTube. It's Virgil from Plain Places Adventures, and we are in the A2A Comanche 250 this evening, sitting on the ramp at Galveston Shoals Airport for a short 1 hour and 15-minute flight down to Corpus Christi. It's a preview of a real-world trip I hope to make later this year to visit a friend, going Pensacola to Galveston for fuel, and then on to Corpus. So we already flew the first leg before, so tonight we've got some good live weather for the trip on down the Texas coast to Corpus Christi. I'm going to give it a few minutes for people to find the stream, and then I'll walk us through the flight plan. Getting everything set up here, so I've got the chat open. All right, well, let's talk about this flight plan. I like to flight plan using the Garmin Pilot app. So here it is on my iPad. Basic flight plan tonight is Galveston to Palacios VOR, then Corpus Christi VOR, and then we'll probably shoot a full RNAV for practice into Corpus Christi International. Winds are out of the northwest tonight on the Texas coast, so we'll be taking off, planning to depart runway 32 at Galveston. And if we look at Corpus Christi, let's just go ahead and check out that airport. Let's go into airports, Corpus, and look at the diagram. So probably landing runway 31 there. And if we approaches, lots of options. 3 different RNAV approaches into 3-1, a localizer. Let's just go ahead and look at what our options look like here on these RNAVs. So that's some sort of airline or military one, clearly. Let's look at this X-ray, pretty traditional. That's probably what we'll do. We'll plan this one. We go to FAPMA as an initial. We get a no procedure turn, transition over to Zulex, into Justo, which is the final approach fix. Let's see what sort of minimums we get here. So, minimums. Okay, so this one's just a lateral nav with step downs. Interesting. Let's see what else we might have. So Y. Okay, here we go. Here's the Y. Similar approach, but it's the LPV. 3-degree slope at Justo. Pretty straightforward. 2,000 foot. Initial 17 across the final approach fix. Minimums at 243 for a 200 foot. AGL half a mile minimums. That looks pretty good. We'll expect that. We'll load it once we're en route. So again, that was the RNAV Y31. All right. So let's go ahead and jump back into the cockpit. We've got a cold airplane here. It's the A2A Comanche 250, very faithful representation of the real one. So, get us going here. We're going to master switch on. And we're going to fuel pump on, watch the fuel pressure come up. Once we see some positive fuel pressure, we'll turn that back off. And needle's coming up. So pump's working, turn that off. Turn our rotating beacon on. We're gonna, this airplane, we start on left mag. I think that's the left. We got mixture rich prop forward. Gonna give it about 5 hits of primer when it's a cold engine. We're gonna set the parking brake. My 59 Comanche does not actually have toe brakes, so in mine you have a brake handle, so you definitely have to use a parking brake for a lot of things. Clear prop, nobody around. Let's start this thing up. Come on, baby. There we go. All right, engine started. We've got oil pressure. That's the first thing we want to look at. We're going to go mags both. Okay, that should be both. And avionics on, autopilot on. This airplane, they didn't model an alternator switch. So that's something that in my airplane, you'd also, first thing you'd be doing is actually after oil pressure is the alternator. And I'm looking here at battery voltage on the JPA 830, making sure that if we give it a little bit of RPM, that's coming up towards 14, which is a charging voltage. Oh yeah, let's switch back to the cockpit here. All right, so again, reorient to the cockpit. We've got positive fuel pressure. We've got oil pressure. Oil temp's going to need a minute yet to come up. We're running the TDS 750 for our GPS. I'm running that in an external window on a touch screen, so I'll pop that here. So that'll stay where you can see it, and a little better than if it's in the panel. Allows me to manipulate it with the touch screen. All right, so now we're going to get into basically our flight instruments. So we're showing, let's see, 81 degrees, HSI on the compass, so those check. Altimeter setting at Galveston right now is 2993. So we're going to set that. We need to set that both. Yep, set that on our altimeter. So that's set. All right, flight plan. We need to go ahead and put the flight plan in the 750. So we're going to go to the flight plan page. We're going to add our destination, which is KCRP, Corpus Christi. We're going to insert after PSX, Palacios, VOR. We're going to insert after CRP, VOR. Enter. Now we can go back to the map and make sure this flight plan matches what we see on our Garmin Pilot app. Those look like they match. And now we get 247 is going to be our initial direct tack. So we're going to set up our HSI for 247, so we're not groping for that after takeoff. And with that, we're gonna take off, climb to 8,000 feet on course, and enjoy the Texas coast sunset. Alrighty. So for taxi, check the pitot heat, turn that on, amps load go down, so that's working. And common signal when you have a ramp crew is when you turn those, turn your strobe landing lights, especially your landing lights on, you are ready to taxi. So push on the brakes, take the parking brake off. We're going to assume we called ground, got our clearance. We're going to taxi to runway 32 via Bravo. And again, confirm that brake is off. Microsoft's very funny taxiway lighting. Winds are pretty calm, it looks like. And coming around the corner, we're going to look for that runway hold short line. Right up here. All right, let's do our run up. I'm not going to do the mag check because I don't actually have those keyed to shortcuts, but we can, again, go ahead and bring the prop in to about 1700 RPM. We're watching the oil pressure, oil temps coming up. We do our mag check with the right first, back to both, then the left, check our drop and the difference. Cycle the prop 1 or 2 times. And props governor's working. We're going to pull the carb heat. And again, what we want to see is that manifold pressure increase as the mixture richens, the RPM drop. And we're going to smoothly pull back to idle and make sure the engine doesn't quit. Run up complete. We're going to move to before takeoff checklist. That's going to be fuel pump, landing lights, strobes, trim. It does need to be set for takeoff. Down to the neutral line. Mixer's ready. Hops forward. Carb heat is off. This will be a no flap takeoff. Plan to climb out runway heading to 1,000 feet and then left turn on course. Of course, at this point we would have switched to tower and assume we've gotten a takeoff clearance. So here we go. got caught here. The sim behaves weird sometimes. There we go. Not sure what's up with the rudder pedals. They were wanting to go left but not right, but we can skin this cat. Alright, here we go. Alright, airspeed's alive. We got good manifold pressure, full RPM. As we come through about 80, lighten the nose, fly it off. Positive rate. Gears coming up. Gears up, amber. We can confirm, looking down. Climbing runway heading to 1,000 feet. Look out at the sunset. Out of 1,000 feet, fuel pumps coming off. Fuel pressure's still good. We're gonna clear on course to Palacios at a 246. Climbing to 8,000. Cruise climb, Comanche usually about 120 miles an hour. If you're heavy, maybe a little slower than that. About 10 degrees pitch up. There's our heading. Out towards Houston, back towards Galveston Beach. And we can trim for the climb. And we can go ahead and pull the EFB up here. And let's get it tracking. Enjoy the Comanche in Flight Simulator Real Life. Check out our In Real Life Flying channel at Plain Places on YouTube. Lots of adventures in our 1959 vintage Comanche 250, based out of Pensacola, all over the U.S. Southeast and further afield when we have the opportunity. And we'll bring up the VFR sectional chart just to get a little more context here. And of course, doing that, we got distracted a little bit, lost our scan. And welcome to the channel. Name's Virgil, Plane Places and Adventures. Our simulator channel flying the A2A Comanche 250 tonight in Microsoft Flight Sim 2024. Just departed Galveston to the west, headed to Corpus Christi for a just after dark landing, probably here in about an hour and 10 minutes. We're on course, the Palacios VOR, climbing to 8,000. We're using the Garmin Pilot app for our electronic flight bag, that's on the left, and the Garmin 750 navigator on the right. We're 7,000 for 8,000. You can see coming through 7, we got high enough that our engine max power dropped below 75%, so we're going to be using full throttle for our cruise setting. We're going to pull the prop back to about 2,300 RPM though. Once we get to 8,000, accelerate and lean for best power. All right, approaching 8,000. We'll start leveling out, letting our airspeed come up. And trimming nose down as we accelerate. You also notice that as we accelerate, less crosswind corrections needed. We start taking out some of that crab angle. And now we can go ahead and pull the prop back to 2,300 RPM. And we're going to start leaning to best power. It's also, I know, going to give us fuel flow at about 13.5 gallons an hour. And I'm going to do that leaning in a couple easy stages. And at this stage, we can go ahead and pop the autopilot into heading mode and switch that heading mode to use the GPS input. And I'm still working on the trim here to get it nice and trimmed for level flight, and then we'll put the altitude hold on. So we are coming up on Angleton, Texas, and Lake Jackson up ahead, and the Texas Coast Regional Airport. Wind is from our right. From the west, you can see the glide ring is the blue glide ring on the Garmin Pilot app is displaced to our left. That means the forecast winds aloft at our altitude are from our right. So it's biasing where we'd want to go an emergency landing downwind for more distance. Here we're going to go ahead and engage, altitude hold, and we're still pulling 16 gallons an hour, And the EGTs are a little low. We're looking for about 1,500 on the EGTs and about 13.5 on the gallons per hour. So again, lean it out a little more. If you like this content, please give us a like and subscribe. Just getting this channel going that'll live separately from our main flying channel and focus on flight simulator content and practical things that you can do in a flight simulator to help in real world flying. And we're going to go ahead and zoom out ahead on that course. And as we get about halfway between Palacios and Corpus, we'll go ahead and key up that RNAV 3.1 approach and plug in the initial approach fix for that. That'll also take us out over the barrier islands for some sightseeing. Moving right along the Comanche, we're pulling 160 knots ground speed. Means we've got a slight tailwind. Holding just a little bit of right offset for crosswind. Just coming into glide range of this Texas Coast Regional as our next emergency landing airport. Got some purple UAS or drone NOTAMs out here tonight. Surface to 225, we're well above that. Surface to 7,000, we're just above that out off the coast. Got the outside view. Galveston Bay behind us. Yeah, we're 20 minutes en route to our VOR waypoint and about 53 minutes to go. Up Lake Jackson, Texas. Using live weather, pretty night on the Texas coast. Yeah, seeing all the way down to Matagorda. And Palacios right on the horizon. And when it's quiet, it's a good time again to start thinking about your planning. So we're planning for the RNAV Yankee runway 31. It's got an initial altitude of 2,000 feet. We're starting from 8,000 feet. That's 6,000 feet difference. So at about 20 to 24 miles, we're going to be top of descent. Heading down to that point, there's an 11-mile run from Fapma to Zulex. And then from Zulex to the final departure, it's another 7. So really, add that up, that's 18 miles. So if we want to sort of do a continuous ascent, we don't really need to arrive at the final approach fix. We don't need to cruise in the last 20 miles at low altitude. So we'll start our descent about 4 miles from Fapma. Should get us nicely down to about 2,000 feet. Ahead of Justo with time to slow down and intercept the glide path and configure for landing. So that's going to be our plan. We'll plan our descent for about 5 miles before Fapma. Next airport up ahead is Bay City Regional. Going to be just off to our right. And East Matagorda Bay, there behind the windshield post. Comanche, definitely my favorite airplane in Flight Simulator. Probably about my favorite airplane to fly thus far. In real life, flown Bonanzas, TBMs, Grumman Tigers, Beach Sundowners, Beach Sierras, Piper Dakotas, a little bit in the Cessna 172 and 150, a couple flights in the extra 300, and some oddball stuff. Oh, and a CH-701 on amphib floats, good amount of seaplane time on that. But Comanche's just a great traveling machine, all around high performing, honest airplane, and it's even fun when you don't have anywhere to go. Got any questions for me or anything? Feel free to drop them in the chat or introduce yourselves. Thank you for joining on a Saturday night. Looking for that Bay City Airport. Just there it is, just ahead and to the right. There it is, Bay City. Let's see, it's sort of got 5,100 foot runway. Really reasonable fuel, $4.20 self-serve, $4.70 full service. That's pretty good price these days. Compare that. Let's look at Palacios's fuel. They're $5 a gallon self-serve. Something that definitely does affect your flight planning in the real world is checking fuel prices, and sometimes that'll alter your flight plan a little bit. Matagorda down there. A lot of the fun of cross-country flying when you can see the ground is picking out all these little towns and landmarks from the charts, seeing who can spot airports the first when you do have passengers or a co-pilot. There are 25 miles from Palacios VOR, so making good time here on our way to Corpus Christi, 42 minutes to go. And again, just for some additional backup, we could go ahead and tune the localizer for 3.1. That localizer frequency is 110.3, so we're going to put that on number 2. And that inbound course is going to be a 312. This just gives us secondary confirmation of our RNAV. Should definitely, those things should be, if not exactly the same, should be pretty close. That's just a good backup. So we got that tuned now. We're going to go ahead and load but not activate the approach. So we go again, if we go into the menu, procedure, approach. We want the 3.1 Yankee LPV. We're going to do this from FATMA. Again, we can look at the map. This map matches our approach plate. Let me bring that approach plate back up. And I'll show that to everybody. So let's bring this back up. All right, so approach plate matches depiction in our 750. So we're going to go, again, load the approach. We're not active yet. It'll activate automatically as soon as we activate a leg or direct to any of the waypoints in the approach. And we can go back to our map. And we can hide the EFB for now. Instrument flight plans, you should always be asking yourself, what can I be doing to get ready for what's next? What is next? And what am I going to do when I get there? Staying ahead of the airplane, doing as much as you can, anticipating ahead of time, getting things done when it's quiet, so that as you get into the terminal environment, you have more time to execute when things start happening quickly. Got a tall 1,500-foot tower just off the left of our flight path up ahead, 5 miles. Not seeing any bright strobes on it tonight. Town of Palacios, Texas, coming up on the left on the water, on with an airport that definitely looks like it was once a World War II training base. Yeah, if we bring our sectional chart back up, anytime you see these multi-runway layouts, very, very, very common World War II era training runways. The entire Gulf Coast, from Texas to Florida, did a whole lot of flight training in those days. Gave them a lot of flexibility on crosswinds, 3 different runways. You'll see a lot of these airports, they've closed all but the primary runway and turned the others into taxiways a lot of times, just to save on the maintenance cost. Interesting, it appears this also still has sort of these little parking pads, these little pull-offs with the circles, again, very common on a military base where they would park the fighters or bombers. So we get close to our waypoint, we want to be paying attention. We are on autopilot. We want to make sure that things sequence to the next leg and that the airplane responds as expected. And just playing around here again, our CDI, our naving the VOR is basically coincident with our RNAV path, but not exactly. big reason why we use VOR or GPS now whenever we have the choice. There's Palacios Airport. Yep, still has those old parking spots. Very clear night over Texas. Planning purpose, about the time we get to Aransas, that's where we'll go direct to our initial fix. And coming up on the waypoint, so verifying our waypointing. We're going to be changing to a 227. So again, going to dial that into the HSI. It doesn't matter where we point this when we're in GPS, but it's good housekeeping to always keep our HSI needle tuned to the correct track. Waypointing successful. Leveling out on our new track. Yeah, still Matagorda, Texas, Matagorda Bay. And then the next bay is San Antonio Bay. Out there over the Gulf. We're at 31 minutes to go. It'll be a little longer as we add this approach into the mix. I'm going to turn the charts off on the 750 display because I like to leave them up on the EFB instead. Traffic and the other is all fine. Getting new TDS version. I'll have to check that out. Sliding ourselves in between some alert areas. Yeah, the Victor Airways also run in this area between these same VORs. So already a clue that if you're going to file IFR, you might want to stay in this corridor to avoid reroutes. Calhoun County up ahead to the right, next small airport. Near Port Lavea. if I want a quick check on, again, where we decide we try to go direct, you press 2 fingers, and sometime, there we go. There's our little distance measure. We're about 50 miles to go to where we're gonna go direct to the initial fix. And Port Lavaca, there off our right wing at the Calhoun County Airport. San Antonio Bay up ahead, and Espiritu Santo Bay off to our left. Matagorda Island there, the barrier between the mainland and the Gulf. Already starting to see Port Aransas up on the horizon, about 30 miles away. And like I said, once we get up here about Aransas County Airport, we'll go direct to FAPA. Give us a nice run down the beach, including over Mustang Beach. Set us up for the RNAV 31 approach into Corpus Christi. Corpus Christi altimeter 2993, that's what we've still got set, pretty consistent over our little short run from Galveston. Alright, from here, we're going to go ahead and assume we were cleared direct. We can hit the direct to button on the 750. Go to flight plan, FAPMA, activate. And again, for housekeeping, we're going to clean up our HSI course 200. Alright, we are 47 miles from FAPA. We had already calculated we don't really need to start our descent until 5 miles before, but again, let's do some other housekeeping. So on our EFB, we want to go ahead and load this procedure as well. It's RNAV 31 Yankee, FAPMA, load activate. Alright, that's looking good. Let's brief this approach. So RNAV runway 31, it's an LPV minimums. We're in category B. Have an approach speed of about 110 knots. Our minimums are 243 feet, which is 200 AGL, half-mile visibility. If we need to circle, MDA is 780, and we need a mile viz. We've obtained the altimeter setting for Corpus Christi, so no adjustments on those minima. We are going to do the FAPMA, which is going to clean up the smart chart here. Comms, if we were, again, real world, I'd be plugging in on my number 2, Corpus Christi Tower. I basically had the ATIS, and then I plug in tower at 119.4. and put ground on 21.9 on standby. Brief, again, final approach course is a 312 crossing Justo at 1,700 feet. There is medium intensity runway lighting system. Is basically a sea level airport, looking for the touchdown at around 43 feet. The missed approach is climb straight ahead to 2,000, direct ATIS, and hold right. Alright, approach briefed. And we got about 35 miles to go to our descent. You can see the Garmin's also anticipating the top of descent, TOD, where it thinks we should start down, and that to me looks like it's assuming pretty much the same thing we are. And again, that's calculated to put us across the final approach fix at 1,700 feet. Now, a lot of times what I'll do as we get close with these smart charts is we can go to the split view mode in Garmin Pilot app. Since I already really have the profile with the altitudes in the moving map, I like to bring up the horizontal view instead, and that just gives me a very quick reference, an easy to understand reference of those altitudes, and it's going to put our little airplane on that in 2 dimensions once we get on the final approach course. If you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. We're going to try to stream at least once a week, more if we can, from the Comanche and other airplanes and flight simulator. And check out our in real life flying YouTube channel at Plane Places, where we also try to post weekly new content of our adventures in our 59 Comanche and other airplanes in the U.S. Southeast and anywhere else we get the chance to fly. Coming up here on Port Aransas, and then past that will be Mustang Beach. As the sun is set over coastal Texas and the stars are coming out. One of the reasons for how these waypoints transition is set up, this avoids bringing airplanes right over the Navy base. Sort of brings us over top of their final. They were landing the same direction. About 20 miles from top of descent. Setting ourselves up for the RNAV 31 approach, Corpus Christi. Descent planning in the Comanches, pretty straightforward. We're gonna gradually throttle back over a couple of minutes to about 14 inches of manifold pressure. Cruise descent around 160 miles an hour, 3 degrees, about 750 foot per minute. And that'll set us up to reach our initial altitude a couple miles short of glide path intercept, so that we'll be ready and slowed down to put the landing gear out for the approach. And coming up on Port Aransas proper and Mustang Beach Airport. 3,500 feet long. Definitely be one of the places we're going to check out in the Comanche when we get down to Corpus Christi in a couple months. Off and again about now, I like running sectional because so much more context in flight, but once I'm actually in the end game and setting up, especially for an instrument approach, then put it back in IFR chart mode. That's going to declutter things quite a bit so I can focus on airports, nav aids, and traffic. And alright, looking off to the right, Corpus Christi Naval Air Station. Looking down one of their runways, we'll be flying just to the south and then west of the air station, cutting through a corner of their Class D airspace on this transition. And of course we're on coming up the start of Padre Island, the the longest barrier islands in Texas. And somewhere out here, if this was really a full approach, wasn't busy, we might get something like 11 miles from FATPA, maintained at or above 2,000 till FATPA cleared for the RNAV Yankee 3-1 approach. There's our 1-minute warning on the 750's estimate of our top of descent. Said we estimated 5 miles from FATPA, calling it a little ahead, but we're both pretty close. And we're going to go ahead and call our descent. Altitude hold is off. Start our throttle back. Go back to about 18 inches first for 30 seconds or so. Then back to 16. And then back to 14. As we do this, we can add just a little bit of nose up trim to control the airspeed and descent rate. Just let her come down. Yeah, if we look at this profile view, we've got a 7-mile run, Julex to Justo, and an 11-mile run before that. So almost 19 miles past FATPA to get down to our 2,000 feet, so it's not going to be any problem. Got turn anticipation showing on the GPS, that magenta to white arc, as expected. As we lose altitude, we got to gradually pull off the manifold pressure to keep constant power as the engine gets into the thicker air. can also slowly bump the mixture up as needed. Getting turn anticipation and waypointing. Rate of descent looks reasonable. And waypointed. Next is Zulex at 11 miles. There, we're getting another view of the Naval Air Station and Corpus Christi proper to the right. And adding mixture to keep it 9 to 10 gallons an hour as we come down. Using trim to control that rate of descent. Looking good. And we do see Corpus Christi off to the right. Altitude's looking good. Our goal is to be at 2,000 feet, about halfway between Zulex and the final approach fix. So we have a couple miles to slow down. And gradually keeping pulling that power back a little inch per 1,000 feet. And we are 3 for 2, waypointing in 10 seconds. Waypointing. And it's turning us on to the final. We do have the localizer tuned on nav 2. You can see that needle swinging to the center. We need to change our course to 312. It's good housekeeping on our HSI that's being driven by the GPS. We've gone into LPV mode. Vertical glide slope is alive. And now's a good time to get that vertical plan up that shows where we are in relationship to that glide slope. We still got a ways before we intercept. So we're gonna go ahead and get mixture edge. Prop forward is gonna give us some drag. We're gonna hold here at 2 and let her decelerate. Still got a good 5 miles to the glide slope. And fuel pump coming on, landing gear to go. Lights are as required. And we don't want to land at this military field that's right up here to our left. That would be an easy mistake to make. That's not our destination. We're going to the airport further in the distance. I wonder if they've ever had accidental landings at that airport. There you go. We're looking for 130 mile an hour for the gear as we get to glide slope intercept coming up in about 3 miles. We are on a charted, of course we're well past our initial fix, so all lower clearance has been handed. Would probably already be on tower by now and likely getting a landing clearance about now. 1 minute warning to glide slope intercept. Speed's looking good for the landing gear. And glide slope needle is moving. Smart chart concurs. Localizer backup confirms. Holding a little bit of crosswind correction. Wind from the right coming on a half dot high. Gear down to go down. Confirming down in green. And about 15 inches. On our power. Coming for final approach fix crossing. On altitude, good cross. Decision altitude 243. We're 1,000 foot to minimums. 3.3 miles to go. Checks. We're 500 foot to minimums. Autopilot disconnect. 3 green on final. Down to 243. 200 minimums. $100 minimums. Minimums. Runway in sight. Clear to land. Flaps are up. Brakes coming in. Still getting used to these rudder pedals. Fuel pump off. Alright, looking for that taxiway. And again, this. Good old Microsoft. There it is. And we are clear. Alright, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Drop a comment, feedback, questions, suggestions for future flights in the chat. It's Virgil from Plain Places, signing off.